You mentioned him, actually. I want to talk about Fabio Carvalho because the last time we spoke, we were trying to kind of fathom what he was, what Liverpool would use him as. Is he going to require a system change? Is it going to be indicative of something that Liverpool are going to shift to? We've got a clearer picture, but not necessarily a very well-defined picture. We've got a picture of how good he is.
Yeah, we know what he's like as a player, don't we? I mean, what I would say is I wouldn't say we've got proof that he can play in midfield in this Liverpool side. Personally, not against him at all, but just the way he plays. My sort of impressions of him are that he'd be better at either with a specialist sort of 10 or as a left-sided forward. Mm-hmm. I think that just from what I've seen of him in pre-season, I think in midfield, you could see in the Salzburg game there was a little bit too much risk in on the ball. It was a little bit too much open when you're playing, and I don't think Jürgen will be too keen to see more of that, to be honest. He actually mentioned it, didn't he? He said it was like a motorway, I think he described it as, didn't he? You could drive through the middle of us. It wasn't just Carvalho to blame for that. Curtis Jones played, obviously. Naby Keita played as well. Milner was there as well to keep them in check. So I think the good news is, footballer, isn't he? I mean, I think probably my favourite thing of the whole of pre-season would be the little header over the defender to set up the goal for Núñez. Yeah. That might be my favourite sort of individual moment of it. And I love that he's got that. He's clearly got a relationship with those younger lads to where he wants to play the 1-2s and he wants to do the tricky sort of bits, which I don't think is a bad thing at all. I think Liverpool having more precision in the final third is a very, very good thing. And I think it sounds ridiculous to say it given the amount of goals he scored, but I do think it's one of those things that I think could cost them in the future, or could have cost them in the future, where how many games do you say with Liverpool won 3-0, but they should have had 10. Yeah, should have had 10. Not even missing chances, failing to create chances when they've got breakaways 4-on-2 and Salah will overrun it, or Sadio would have done it, or Bobby Firmino doesn't play the pass early enough. I think having players a bit more City-ish who are just, there you go, there's the final pass and you're in on goal. Yeah,
and also just the flexibility that I think he feels a very Man City player in that regard. And just on that left hand side, it's not the best example I'm going to present here, but with him and Jones on that left hand side, I don't think they were great in that first half in particular. I thought they started really brightly and started really well, but it reminded me a little of the FA Cup game last season with Elijah Dixon-Bonner and Curtis Jones, in that both can clearly do the left hand, both can do both positions on the left hand side, and it gives you again just that little bit of tactical flexibility.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I don't think it'll be long before we see him in the Premier League. I don't expect to start the Fulham game, although it'll be a nice treat for him against his former club. And Harvey Elliott, to be fair. But I don't think it'll be long before we see him in a Premier League game at Anfield and getting the chance. But I personally think his impact will be greater, a line higher than midfield at this moment in time.
And what you've got with him and Harvey Elliott there, though, it gets out. You forget this sometimes, but I remember going back to summer of 2007, and we signed Lucas and Torres, and Babel comes in, and Babel's like seen as like, oh wow, we've got this one extra lad, but he's a young wonder kid, not for now, but we can get excited about. That's what I think we've got in Carvalho and Elliott, the lads who are not going to be like, well, sorry Mo Salah, but I'm coming in and I'm taking over. Sorry, Luis Diaz, I'm above you. Yeah. But at any given time and opportunity, they're there to be explosive.
You're right, it's tough, isn't it? Because it's tough for the patience element, both for the player, because they've had a taste of it. I mean, Carvalho was 40 games last season in the champ, winning the thing. Harvey Elliott obviously lost a few months of his career, but he was starting the Premier League at the start of last season. So it's hard to sort of say, be all right, give it a year, you'll be fine. I don't think Liverpool will do that. But it's hard from a fan's point of view as well to have that patience to say, look, because as soon as Liverpool don't fly in the first half, get Elliott in the side, get Carvalho on the side, and then as soon as they don't fly when they're in the side, it becomes, well, they're not good enough. Yeah. And that sort of element pervades quite a lot with team selection and things like that. But the good thing is, your bench is just going to have footballers on it, so it's never a bad thing, to bring on an Elliott or a Carvalho when you need to keep the ball, or you need to create a bit more, or you need to stretch the game a bit. They can do pretty much all of it, in that sense. So you're filling your team with more. I wouldn't say fewer specialists, if you like, and just more footballers. And what do we need? Okay, yeah, he can do it. Curtis Jones, yeah, he can do it. I want you to come on and win free kicks. I want you to come on and put crosses in. I want you to put on, Whereas maybe in the past the bench was filled with, Divock Origi, where it was like, come on and score against Everton if you can, or fewer scenarios where it made sense.
What you want is, and this is where this is where Liverpool's squad balance is important as anything else, is that you can't afford to carry too many senior footballers. I mean, most people would have just kept Shaqiri around because, well, know that when you have to break glass, you want to be putting a Swiss international who's won the Champions League in your team or anything else. Divock Origi, similar to that. Oxlade-Chamberlain, I guess people kind of got a bit bored of Ox, I guess, but he's a senior international calibre footballer.
Adam Lallana was another one. Before that,
What Liverpool want to be able to do is you want lads who you've got tons of progression time, they've got loads more time to improve, and they just, you get to drop them in and be excited about them. Yeah. They get to come in, you'll get 15 minutes here, you get half an hour there, definitely. Then they start the game, they both won't start. They get to be the fifth and sixth best in the in the forward line or whatever. We saw this with Sterling's development at Man City. He goes from has to perform at Liverpool every week. He's the main man. To you're behind Aguero and you're behind all the senior talents, that David Silva, etc. At there. Go and come in and influence the game how you can influence the game.
I think Foden's another example, isn't it? There was a couple of years of Foden with why is he not? He needs to play more. I mean, I think there was a debate. I remember it being up. Does he have to go on loan to get games? No, it's all right. Look, he'll play and he'll play. He'll score. By the end of the season, I think there was one where he scored 14 goals, and you think, I don't even remember him playing. Never mind scoring 14 goals, and then all of a sudden, there you go. You're in the side.
Is he the model for these two? Do you think, Phil Foden?
What in terms of the progression? I mean, not I wouldn't say as a player, but there are elements to it. I think Harvey Elliott's not as quick as explosive as Phil Foden, or but he's got the touch and the skill and the vision of a Foden. Carvalho's probably a bit more closer to him in terms of, I suppose, his pace and that kind of thing. But in terms of where he can get to, possibly, yeah. I mean, like Foden, where does Foden play? What's his position? Where would you, if you were doing champ manager, 97, 98, it'd be what? Attacking midfielder, right, left, centre, forward. Yeah. You wouldn't be far off that with Harvey and Fabio, and probably Curtis as well. There's a little bit of that to it. So yeah, possibly there is that in terms of give yourself as many chances to get on the pitch and get it. And once you're on the pitch, we've shown, Jurgen Klopp's shown that you'll stay on there if you're delivering. They
feel like part of the next sort of evolution or whatever Liverpool are trying to do in that level of unpredictability and obviously having goals in different areas of the pitch. And that's right, because that's what Man City, and I guess I'm kind of driving that with the Foden thing. Not that they're going to be exactly the same players for Foden. Look, it's what Foden represents. He's a young talent. He's exciting. He's happy to grow and develop. But you can put him. There's 5 positions on that pitch you can drop him into in any given opportunity, and he'll have a positive impact on the game. He's not just going to be a passenger.
I'm glad you said that. To be honest, that would probably be the point I'd make. Is don't worry about where you're going to play. Fans do. We always do, don't we? We say, well, where are we going to fit him in? How would you play him and him in the same team? It's like, no. When you get the chance, just play, be you, and deliver. Don't worry I don't ever see an instance where Phil Foden, he's played as a false 9, probably in massive games. I can imagine for City. I can't think of him off the top of my head, but I know he's played there. I don't ever see a situation where Phil Foden goes like, what am I doing here? I think he just sees, well, give me the ball and go, what are we doing? What are we up to? I think that's the blueprint for these younger players, that take your chance. And I don't see any. Look, Curtis is the one that probably has the most doubts over them, and I would say in that regard, I have fewer doubts than a lot of people about that. But the other two, I don't see that being an issue for them. I see them ready to sort of give me my opportunity. I could imagine Carvalho. I'll play up front if he wants against Fulham. Yeah, I know all them. Like, I'll get stuck in. I can imagine Elliott saying, "Salah's out for a couple of weeks. I'll play." I'll do all the Salah things that you need me to do. Yeah. I don't think he will, but I think he'd be up for it. Yeah. Up for the battle.
I think the Curtis conversation is interesting as well, because I do think Liverpool's squad depth is going to be defined by what kind of season Carvalho, Elliott, and Jones actually have. And Curtis Jones, he was pre-Salzburg was talking up, his sort of targets for the season. Anyone who knows Curtis Jones will know that he is not a lad lacking in confidence. He does set himself lofty goals, even when some of us...
10 and 10, was it?
Fine, good. Yeah. I mean, look, Harvey Elliott were in... half tongue-in-cheek talking to me in Bangkok said, I said 10 goals and he said more like 15, 20. Go ahead, Harvey, absolutely go for it. I like the attitude on this, but Kurt has got a little bit more of a... We talk about the loans and stuff. He's on the cusp, isn't he, I think, where you could see Kurt Jones coming in and having a big impact in a Liverpool side, but you could equally see him in a mid-table Premier League loan just as much if it doesn't quite kick on. But if he can have the season that he's certainly got the potential for, then he doesn't need to be the next Thiago this season or the next name a senior footballer. But this has to be a big season for him to kick on.
I do think that. I do think he just needs to be consistent, and he needs to consistently have an impact. And I do think there's an element of negativity around him. I think it stems from the moments that he's had, probably that have given this impression that why hasn't he curled them in against Everton? Why isn't he sort of doing Rabonas and those kind of things that we become used to very early in his Liverpool career? He had some massive moments. If you think back, he scored a win in a Merseyside derby, he scored a win in a Champions League game. He's scored the winning penalty at the Cop End. He's captain Liverpool. I don't know if he's the youngest captain, but one of the youngest captains in that Shrewsbury game. He's already had these sort of high watermarks.
He's got those moments of those players that you go, oh, he's going to be a talent. They never get to those. You're always waiting for them to have that moment. So it's like the Danny Pacheco moments where if he just gets a goal, that's going to be the springboard. Curtis Jones, yeah, exactly. He's had all them already, but you're right. It's the stuff underneath that he almost needs to build. Yeah, to build.
And I think you're right. I think he will define, or Liverpool squad depth will be defined by those three, and probably Keita as well. How many games he plays, more so than anything else. The loan issue with someone like Curtis, for me personally, I don't see there's any benefit whatsoever to sending him, because I don't think he comes back, even if he goes and scores 15 goals for Aston Villa and becomes their player of the year. I don't think he comes back any different to Liverpool's plans, in the sense of I don't think he suddenly come back and go, well, wow, yeah, Curtis Jones is what is it, oh, he can suddenly use his right foot. No, he can use his right foot. Yeah, suddenly he's got a left foot on. He's got all those tools now. It's not a question of sort of games now. It's a question of him doing it and putting it together, whether it's for Liverpool or what. He's capable of doing that for Liverpool as much as he is for Aston Villa, but he's also as capable as failing for both. So I think he's got a challenge on his hands first to get on the pitch and get into the side. But once he's in there, he has to seize it and not in the way of sort of trying to do everything himself. He has to just consistently be a very, very good player, which he's had spells in the Liverpool side where he has done it, but he hasn't yet nailed it down.
He falls foul of people have just seen more of him probably than they should have done, and we've seen there's a litany of Liverpool players over the years who were forced into action perhaps a little bit too soon, a little bit too often. And I think we were careful with Harvey Elliott a little bit because of this. You only get one chance really sometimes to break onto the scene. We do get jaded with footballers quicker than we should do if they're not immediately absolute superstars. You got Jordan Henderson at one end of the scale who's ridden, he had to ride that out to become the player that he is. But on the other side, you've got lads who burn brightly in the early days, and then David Thompson's probably a good example of this, where maybe didn't quite have what it took to stick it out and go with it. Liverpool fans didn't hold him up in the same sort of esteem, and he moves on. It's this season again. It's going to be a big one to see. I can see him doing it. There's so clearly a player there. Yeah. It could be a brilliant Curtis Jones season, and I hope it is, because there's a ton of people who for some reason don't see it, yeah, or don't want it to be, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things with Curtis is, I think when he makes mistakes, I think he tends to make them quite obvious mistakes, as in he takes too long on the ball or too many touches, or he gets caught in some bad areas. We've seen that. I mean, there was a game last season where I think it was Leicester, where it felt like he had a really good first half, except he made 3 mistakes, and all 3 mistakes probably should have resulted in the goal. And it was like, well, you didn't have a good first half. Yeah. But I think he has that tendency to to do the thing that you least want him to do at the moment. But he has to offset that. I think by now he has to 10 and 10. He said it himself. I mean, there was a great quote from him. He finished his interview with Becky Davis last night, where he said, "Yeah, we've got Fabio Carvalho and Harvey Elliott. You know, they're really good. So am I." And that was how he finished. And you think, yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're right. But like, don't just say it now. Like, you know, like let's not have that just as a quote that gets used against you in the future. Let's have that as a quote that gets held up as he told you.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that, and that's why it's big. I think, you know, Carvalho's going to have a bunch of time now because he's a new lad. Harvey Elliott will have it because, again, people are just so excited to see him and so excited to see him back.
He's a lovely player to watch.
Yeah, and I think Curtis Jones, and I think those three are going to be potentially difference makers for us because they're young, they're hungry, they've got pace, they've got great touch, they've got great control, they're aggressive, they're strong. Curtis has got that extra 3 or 4 or more inches on him height-wise as well, which adds to what he can bring to the game.
I spoke about this as well, where the fact that people like Mane, obviously, you know, before that, Lallana's moved on, Milner's like sort of diluted his appearances, is coming down. Potentially Firmino's in the same position. So you're all of a sudden you're losing maybe those players that a Curtis Jones felt like I've always got to give him the ball, or I defer to them. Mm-hmm. They're the sort of senior players, and I'm the boy. I mean, he's not really like that, Curtis, generally. But you're all of a sudden you're looking around, and you're thinking, well, hang on, okay, I'm here now. Like I'm the team. You know what I mean? I'm the one who might be looking at Isaac Mabea saying, lad, you give it to me. You know, that kind of attitude, or Stefan Bajcetic. I think that helps, and I wonder whether the presence of those two, or the trio, if you want to call it that, because I think they can be lumped in together as a sort of what do they produce this season. I think the presence of all three you might see them all used together in games where it's like these are the next generation of sort of the ballers who like to play the little 1-2s and you know, like to have that sort of, you know, the modern sort of style. You might see a bit of that from them, and I'd like to. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they're all playing in the Strasbourg game on Sunday at Anfield, and that might be quite fun to watch for people. So yeah, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say there's pressure on them, but there's a lot of intrigue as to what all three of them produce. But the best news possible is we're not talking about 3 players that, you know, what are they going to be? You're talking about what 3 players can we get all that amazing talent out of them?
And moreover, none of them needs to be a world beater from this weekend or from the weekend after or whatever. There are differing levels of pressure on them, and they're external pressures, and some of them be internal as well.
But they need to be ready to be a world beater soon, because that's Liverpool, and also an injury comes along to Thiago, and all of a sudden it's like, well, where's all the creativity coming? Come on, can you do it now? That's the big question, isn't it? But talent-wise, don't have a doubt about any of them.
Get yourself signed up for Redmen Plus today. Go to redmenplus.com. There is loads of benefits other than the incredible content that we produce week in, week out on the team that we all support. You can get 20% off merchandise. You can get access to a Discord server where it's Liverpool 24/7, 365. Get over there, redmenplus.com.